GM Ori, happy week one.
GM.
You're fully kitted up.
It's Bears Packers week. Come on.
Yeah.
I was hoping the shirt would fit. Is it a Rojo jersey? Is it a Hall of Fame Devin Hester jersey? Is it a Jordan jersey? We just don't know.
Yeah, I actually, I don't know if we want to start week one, talk about Devin Hester, but I've been big on the Devin Hester as a Hall of Famer. And then I got in an argument with one of my buddies watching Thursday Night Football, and my mind might have been changed. He was like, he's had 20 good plays in his life. Is that really a Hall of Famer? And I was like, damn.
Change the game. Let's move on.
Yeah. All right. We can move on. Cool. So if anyone's new here, thanks for coming by. We are going to take a look at position by position, then do a game by game breakdown, primarily focused around DraftKings. We'll talk about, good chalk, bad chalk, that type of thing, GM, Frankie, TD, Willis, etc. Any questions, drop them in the chat. I am pretty attentive, but talk about who we like positionally, talk about we might build like a cash type build, and then get into our tournament plays. This is we'll start mostly cash focus and then get into the how we win the millions. So quarterback, in just a macro thing, like this is not the typical like week one you can get whoever you want. You're gonna have to get uncomfortable one or two spots probably in any lineup, whether it's cash or GPP. And that's no different at quarterback. Jalen Hurts is like the expensive chalk. Justin Herbert is kind of that mid price. And then, there's guys like Anthony Richardson and maybe even Sam Howell in play at the bottom end. I think the two, cash builds that I've seen that I like, it's either, paying up for Jalen Hurts or going down to Anthony Richardson. There's definitely question marks about Anthony Richardson, even if you put aside any, hatred you might have for the prospect or his passing abilities. Like there is a genuine concern around his week one ceiling. So yeah, any thoughts there? Like if you are like, who's the guy that you're most comfortable with? Is it still Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I'm only doing the survivor and I'm going to run out Jalen Hurts. I would like for that to be Derek Carr or Baker Mayfield, but the field doesn't agree. So it doesn't make sense for me to go that route. But yeah, I do think those guys' profiles in this matchup in this week fit a cash mold, but without ownership, you can't do it.
Yeah, I don't think you can show up to cash with anyone besides Richardson, Hurts, or Herbert. Like if you get your teeth kicked in with early chalk, then you could pivot Hurts to Herbert, and depending on how that weather is. I'm not currently getting any indications that the weather actually matters. I'll take a look. I think Roth said he updated, but yeah, and the other thing is it's very flat ownership. So like quarterback, generally speaking, is not a place where it's like, oh my God, I'm going to flip the quarterback build and like get leverage that way. It's more about pretty much every other spot on your lineup. But this week is like incredibly flat. Like no one really above 10%, even in high stakes. Looks like Herbert at 14, some of those guys getting into the very, very low teens. But basically you have permission to play who you want. That's not an answer, but don't, if you have a lean and you feel good about it, it's fine. And you could also be above the field than any of the chalk guys.
Yeah, agreed.
Is there anyone, so who's, we can get into like the game by games, but is there anyone, you talked about Carr and Baker. Are those your two sort of off the wall guys here at QB in like a GPP sense?
Yeah, I think those are the two that I have the most of in GPP, large field, super large field. And I'm also running out some Geno singles and doubles. And, I'm going to run out some JF1. We'll talk about it.
Yeah. I was actually kind of surprised. Like this 46 total for Rams Seattle, I think it's very high. Vegas obviously telling me something that my brain just wasn't ready to hear. And I think, well, like the Rams defense is pretty bad outside of like 1.5 players. And then, Seattle defense is actually not really what you come to think about with Seattle. They have, was his name Tariq Woolley or whatever, the they have a good corner, and that's pretty much it too. And they're pretty banged up in the secondary. So I don't know
Yeah.
how much lifting the Rams are going to do, but yeah, like Geno Smith, very in play. So that's the thing with like Anthony Richardson, and I don't want to get kill the topic right off the jump, but like Anthony Richardson, think is finding cash in GPP. Um, for 400 more to go to Deshaun Watson at less ownership and at 500 more to go to Geno Smith that you can genuinely double stack with upside. Trevor Lawrence is even going to be lower owned. Kirk Cousins, like there's no shortage of places that you can pivot off of Anthony Richardson in GPP. So I'm not really into it unless you feel good about, Alec Pierce or Pittman, but
Yeah, and I think A-Rich is generationally bad
GM plus.
in GPPs.
Yep. All right. So that's quarterback. We'll talk about it more as it, stack conversation. Running back, it looks like Aaron Jones actually grading out the best. I think part of that is, volume moving his way, both in the run and pass game with, Christian Watson out, Romeo Dobbs looking like he's going to be shaky at best. The chalk is still going to be, Jamal Williams, Raheem Mostert, Austin Eckler. Anyone besides those, three, you pretty much can play without ownership concerns. Let's say, between Raheem Mostert and Jamal Williams, if you were only playing one of these, low 5Ks in a GPP, which one has your eye more? Is it Mostert versus Jamal Williams?
Just of those two?
Yeah. If let's say
Um,
you like I want to eat the chalk on one running back, one of those cheap running back slots, like which one would you rather show up in GPP with?
in a GPP, I'd much rather show up with Mostert. I do not like Mostert this week. I think he's bad chalk. But in a GPP sense, if you're going to show up there, he does have a ceiling. I mean, he is a fast guy, and their offense is fast, and he
Yeah.
has a ceiling. Jamal Williams has his ceiling is dependent on falling in the end zone 3 times and plotting, you
Yeah.
know. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I really don't feel good about, Jamal Williams at close to 20% own and higher stakes, even a little bit more than that. We'll get into, Olave and things like that later. Another like sneaky thing, like it seems like Devin A Chain is going to be inactive and he practiced all week, so it's actually almost like a healthy scratch. I don't know if that's an indication of like, they that should we read into that and say, we feel really good about Raheem Mostert and Seven Ahmed, or is it just like, Devin A Chain, it's week one, he's not ready yet. But maybe he was only projected for 3 touches or so, but that can't hurt, the Mostert thing. It's just a matter of how the field reacts to that. But I do like Mostert a lot more than Jamal Williams.
Yeah, totally agree there.
And then one other thing that I found really interesting. So Eckler, is getting, a little bit of ownership. It's a decent spot, the highest total on the slate. But all these guys, and if I were to so I have this sorted on like my value metric. It's similar but different to the ETR value metric. It's just anything around a 1 is very good here. It's just salary adjusted, or it's points weighted but salary adjusted values. So what you'll notice here, so like Eckler has some chalk, like Christian McCaffrey. I mean, 12% feels like it's not going to get much higher than that 12%. And then all of these guys, Chubb, Bijan, Henry, Jacob, like this whole range from between Eckler down to Mixon or Madison is like all going to be single digits owned, and it's just not the way that the field is building. So I think if you have do you have a lean? Do any of these guys jump off the page to you?
Yeah, I mean, I I think the I think ATN is a really good play. I'll talk about that more later.
Yeah,
Early in the week, I was really on King Henry because I'm a Derrick Henry kind of a guy. I've softened on that a lot through the week, but also his ownership has gone down throughout the week. So I may go back to Derrick Henry, but of the guys that you highlighted, those are the main two. I do think
yeah,
Bijan and Chubb are fun for certain types of GPP lineups, but I'm not going to have any big exposures to them.
yeah. No, I agree. It like Ramondre isn't really in my consideration field. I think ETN, if he actually is this, 5 or 6%, that's a total smash. And I do like if you in the late game, so let's say you're in Tyreek Hill, Mostert type build, Josh Jacobs at 7,700. He's gonna have such a huge role, and he's gonna be very very low owned. So that's a good afternoon option. So if you have a read on any of these guys, and I think Bijan has some upside. Derrick Henry, of course, always in play for that 30+ point game. They're just going to be solo owned. I think you get positive leverage on pretty much any running back. Between that Eckler
Yeah.
and Mixon. I do also want to point out Ken Walker. 13% is very reasonable, I think, because he was on the injury report for about 30 minutes. Doesn't seem like really anything. That does also, like, I've heard that. I'm kind of borrowing that from the industry, but I do agree. Ken Walker's upside in a really high total, against a really bad defense. He's going to be in that second tier of plays, not, he's not going to be super chalky.
Yeah, I've also heard that around the industry, and I couldn't agree more. I think that's just a fact. Like, he's for sure going to be under-owned as to where he should be.
Yep. All right. Is there anyone, so then just last before we move on, anyone at the super cheap end, like, most of these guys are trash, but like under 5K, like do Deion Jackson, Evan Hull, like Jalen Warren, like in a super big field. Any of those guys jump out to you or interest you at all?
Honestly, no. The lowest I've found myself going is to the 5K range.
Yeah.
I can't get below 5K. I just can't do it. I don't
Yeah.
see the
I
upside
think,
there.
yeah, I think, yeah, it's hard to see the upside. But the consensus build is going to be, hammering that 5K and up. If you have if we get some indication on like Deion Jackson is going to be, the lead back in Indianapolis, not that it's like a super great spot. 4,100. Not a lot of people have been planning to build with Deion Jackson. I think that, that could work. And there's also, I saw a report that Rappaport was saying that Jalen Warren is expected to, mix fairly evenly with Najee Harris. It's not a great matchup, but again, just to be a little different, it's just a pure ownership, like flip the build. But anyway, the fun stuff. There's a lot of receivers in conversation, both in cash and GPPs. ETR, I will like asterisk, like this is driven by the ETR projections. They're pretty measurably above the industry on Calvin Ridley, so he comes out grading the best. I'm not super into that. And then at the high end, you have Jamar Chase, Jefferson, and Tyreek all being pretty chalky, around 20% or even higher as you go up in stakes. And it's not that hard to get them because you have guys such as Marvin Mims, Tutu Atwell, Jaden Reed, Kendrick Bourne even popping a little bit, with Devontae Parker out. So how do you feel just generally? Like, do you have a favorite amongst, or a favorite two between, Chase, Jefferson, and Tyreek at the high end?
Yeah, I don't like Chase. We'll get into that in the game stuff. So that leaves me at the high end with Jefferson, Tyreek, and Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
The one thing that does concern me about Tyreek is what Dink had gotten into detail about with the Chargers and the way they defended McDaniels and took away the middle of the field. That's a bit too much hand in the dirt, even for me. I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's a mild concern that might push
Yeah.
JJ, but there's a cost difference too. And I'm a Waddle guy, so I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah. Yeah, Waddle, I think, is super great leverage. Do you have a favorite? So Ridley versus Olave, I know where you're going to go, but do you want to talk about Ridley versus Olave at that same 6,500 price?
Yeah, I mean, Ridley versus Olave to me is very simple. The Jacksonville game script, in my opinion, just does not lead to Jacksonville having, five receiving weapons that are pretty solid being needed and having an upside ceiling for 6,500. And, I just see an ETN game. I just can't get away from that. And then on Olave's side, Jamal sucks. He's a plotter. Michael Thomas is going to be healthy for, between one snap and the full game. Who knows what he is? Olave is a fucking alpha, and now he has a
Yeah,
quarterback there that nobody here likes, but he's actually an NFL quarterback, and I don't know that you could say that in year one, Chris Olave. So yeah, I
sure.
just think Olave is a smash,
Yeah,
absolute smash.
yeah. I mean,
And
we've been
Tennessee's
clicking.
a total pass funnel defense, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. And we've been clicking Chris Olave. We like, as in not just us, but also the entire industry has been clicking Olave over Calvin Ridley all draft season. And now you
Yeah.
have a spot, in a pass funnel where, Alvin Kamara obviously is out, Kendry Miller is out, and, that helps Jamal Williams. But how many times can you give Jamal Williams the football? So
Well,
I
I'll say
do
one
actually
more
like
thing.
Olave.
I really, really like Mike Vrabel as a coach. I know you do too.
Mhm.
I think it is much easier for him with less talent to find a way to stop Jamal Williams
Oh,
versus
yeah.
finding a way to shut down Chris Olave and their passing attack.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
just,
I do. Yeah, and I do think, like, I wonder if ETR is gonna, shift ownership towards Ridley just because he grades out so high. Um, Obviously now Mark Andrews expected to be out, pump Zay Flowers up, which makes me a little sad. Because I was trying to play Zay Flowers before this, but I think he can still probably get away with that. And then, do you have a favorite of the 3K guys? I don't know if you want to get into it now. Between Marvin Mims, Tutu, I don't think is really going to be your pick. And then, so Marvin Mims versus Jaden Reed. Do you have a strong lean there?
yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would call it a strong lean. I just think that Sean Payton is going to find a way to utilize his other weapons more than Mims, and so his upside is a bit capped. That's not a cash conversation, obviously, but
Yeah,
whereas Jaden Reed, I mean, if Dobbs is truly on a pitch count and like I don't know what else LaFleur can do besides
yeah, yeah,
to have Jaden Reed have a bigger role. So I just think there's a usage edge with Jaden Reed, and so I'm leaning that way. But that
yep,
being said, I like Mims today. I like
yeah.
Mims.
Oh, Mingo is also only 3,200. So I mean, you have options. But I do lean right now. I have Mims in, but I've been wanting to play Jaden Reed for a very long time, and I think that this is a pretty good spot to do so. And I don't think people like Musgrave is no longer the cash guy. Obviously, we'll get to tight end next, but as Musgrave comes out, I'm tempted to play Jaden Reed a little more there, not like a little bit of leverage, and also still getting exposure to. Hey, Green Bay is going to throw the ball 25 to 35 times, and it's got to go to someone. So anyway,
Yeah,
we'll get to tight end here. Isaiah Likely really emerging here as almost prohibitive chalk. He's going to be 20% or so in the large field stuff, but 30+% in high stakes, is going to be an interesting conversation. I was expecting him to jump more off the page, to be honest with you. He's a cash game lock if if Mark Andrews is confirmed out. But now it's really interesting conversation. I've been excited about Likely all offseason. He's my second highest owned tight end in best ball. I've been super excited for this. I think he might even carve out a role in with Mark Andrews in, but like I don't know that you can show up playing 30% owned Isaiah Likely projected for 9 points. I was expecting this to be like a much higher projection. So it's contest dependent for me. I think as you go up in stakes, like Isaiah Likely is just becomes prohibitive, and you have guys like Tyler Higbee in good spots. Musgrave, still is going to be fine at half the ownership. To give up 1 point and get less than half ownership, I think on Musgrave versus Likely is good. That was a lot of hogging the microphone. So, any thoughts there on tight end?
yeah. No, I mean, I really like Likely as a player for this season. I don't like Likely this week in terms of tournaments or anything like that. I do have him in my cash survivor lineup. Um,
Yeah, you
just
have to.
because that's where the ownership's going to go.
Yeah,
But I am concerned about him in this spot in week one, and that's mainly because, like, you know, I what is his health as well? Like, I is and also is he soft? Like, why did he miss the entire preseason? And now
yeah,
Andrews is out, and he's just like what if he's in a split with Charlie Kolar and
Yeah,
weird
no, that's
stuff?
a little. I
Just
think
for
that's a
week
little.
one, I'm just concerned that this is
Yeah,
also a guy that hasn't been healthy. That's all I'm saying.
sure. Yeah, that's why I can make the GPP case in in those smaller field stuff. Similar to DST. Like if you're not going to play a 30% DST, I don't think you should be playing a 30% tight end projected for single digit points.
Yeah.
And then, even if you combine, likely Higby and Musgraves, like ownership is like, north of 60% combined or right at
Well,
60% combined.
I'm gonna have to jump in here. The one thing that the likely thing did, in my opinion, is I think Higby's ownership is wrong. I think he's going to be underowned
Oh
compared to
yeah,
what he
I
should
have
be
Higby
on this
penciled in.
slate, and I am now much more on board Higby
Yeah.
with this likely situation.
Yeah. Higby is like, I, I think Levitan talked about it. It's like, I was expecting to see Higby at 3,500 and,
Yeah.
30-40% owned, but at 4,800, it's just not a place people are building. Same goes for Hawkinson and even Kittle to an extent. Kittle's going to be legitimately 1% because people are scared he's hurt, whatever. I don't know that I'll advocate Kittle outside of the $5 milli type stuff, but even Hawkinson, man, like people just they've had Musgrave penciled in since Tuesday at 2,900, and now they'll find another $100 for likely, but it's 1,800 more for Higby and then even more for Hawkinson. So I think if you can find a way, just change your DST, go down to like the Raiders, that type of thing, change around one or two spots. I'm really going to try to play guys like Higby and Hawkinson, even in Joku, just getting out of that 3K range. And even, going back to Musgrave, I think is fine.
Yeah, I agree.
DST will go relatively quick. Commander's going to be 30% in the large fields and 40 to 50% as you go up. Um, I don't know. I don't have the math to support it, but that's almost definitely bad. Just be conscious of it. I think I've seen a lot of studies. A good number that people seem to like for the milli type contest is around 110, 120% cumulative ownership. And keep in mind, I suppose product ownership is something that's gotten a lot of steam as well. Long story short, if you're playing Commanders defense, you can't show up with Commanders and Isaiah Likely and a chalk primary stack. Like you have permission to play Commanders if you're going off the wall, but otherwise, I don't think you can show up in a contest that incentivizes first place as 15, 20, 33% of the prize pool. You can't play a 50% owned defense and chalk. So that's just like my thing. Alternatives, any like, of course you have to show up in cash with Commanders. You have to. Who do you like outside of Kami's D as you go down the board?
Yeah, so cash aside, in cash it's Commanders and it's log off. You
Yep.
cannot do anything else. Um, I'm a hometown guy and I can tell myself a story about the Bears, so I have some of them. Um, I think
Okay.
that the Browns defense is going to be way underowned. I think that for 2,600, you can definitely fire off the Browns defense when you need to save some money. I'm
Oh,
not
100%.
able to go below the Browns. I saw some people talking about, Houston. Obviously, you don't want to spend too much money at defense, but I think if you're looking to get cheap, you can go down to the Browns. I think the Bears are in play. And if you want to spend a little bit of money and do some correlation, I love the Jaguars defense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because of the ridiculous value
They're
of
expensive,
some
but yeah.
things like Baker and Carr stuff, there's some places where I'm going to roll out 4,000 fucking Ravens
Yeah.
just
Yep.
because I have a weird lineup and it helps me get leverage. I don't like paying 4K for defense, but if you can
Agreed.
achieve other things and it works, then do it.
Agreed. I do like Ravens defense. I think Jags defense attacking Anthony Richards is a good call. Chargers D, I really, really like this call. I like it probably more for anyone. They're like literally ranked the worst value. Not something that I care a whole lot about because this 5.4 points could be 8 points and then they'll be middle or even high in the pack. So very highly variable. Turn Armstead, the left tackle for the Dolphins, is very good. Is I think confirmed going to be out and miss this game. In the afternoon slates, and now we're getting like super niche. Like I always like playing one of the defenses from the highest total games, just because you're getting a whole lot of pass attempts here, which leads to sacks and interception opportunities. And if nothing else, the Chargers do have a very strong pass rush, at least in a couple of spots. So I think that is a
And
really
they're
good
healthy, and
play.
it'll probably be the
Yeah,
only game they're healthy. I just
yeah,
don't like that 3,100, but I get it.
yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm actually very open to it, even in the $5 milli, that type of thing. If you're playing 50 lineups, no ownership over 120, how much Commanders will you have? I'm personally playing like maybe 10 lineups, but I don't know that I would set a hard ownership rule at 120, but maybe something like 150, and then just look at how much I would tap Commanders at like 20%. I don't, that was just like from my balls, but like if I look at their share of relative value on this slate is about 20%. So 20% feels about right to me, but it's all about combinations. So that's sort of a cop out answer. What I would do is probably about 20%. I do want exposure, but only in specific, like if you're playing Baker Mayfield type stuff, like, yeah, you can play Commanders defense. So maybe you don't even need to set a hard cap on Commanders defense. But if you say like, don't play Commanders defense with Jalen Hurts, don't play Commanders defense
Yeah.
with Austin Eckler, like those are the types of like pick and like, Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, like pick your, five most chalky guys on this slate and just like, don't play the Commanders defense with that.
I would also add that
Buccaneers too
the
low.
Falcons are just fine to click.
Yeah. All right. So that's enough about that. Try and get through the game. So first game up, Carolina at Atlanta. Atlanta 3.5 point favorites, 39.5 point total. Not a whole lot to get excited about here, but ownership is very low as well. Anything you like here, easy spot to get leverage without having to get super high.
Yeah, I don't like too much here. I do have a Bijan Atlanta defense team that I'm rolling out. I do have a Mimi Algier Atlanta defense team I'm rolling out, and I do have Mingo in just a couple of spots.
Let's get it, Frankie.
But that's it. I have no interest in this game. I believe Atlanta gives them a thorough spanking and does it without big fantasy performances that I need.
Yeah, I'm not scared that anyone on the Atlanta side is who you need. Drake London is like reasonable at the price. I just don't know that Carolina is going to push Atlanta to have to pass a lot. Kyle Pitts at 4,500, like, and 3%, like, whatever. That's fine. One thing I will say, Jonathan Mingo, at 3,200, he's not a super high profile prospect by any stretch. He'd never led Ole Miss in receiving, but there's obviously super banged up at receiver. I don't know. I think Thielen probably will play, but who knows to what extent. And Jonathan Mingo profiles, people compared him to, I'm stealing this from Silva, who stole from someone else, like people comparing him to Debo Samuel, and not near, well, Debo wasn't even a high pedigree guy either. He's a mid-round pick or maybe second, third round pick, but yeah, Mingo's like a manufactured touch guy. So it's not like, so think of Marvin Mims. And this might be like a cash type thing. Like Marvin Mims is ADOT in college is, I don't know, like 18 or 20. He's like super high down the field. Jaden Reed is like a mid to, high ADOT guy. Jonathan Mingo, in all likelihood, is going to be, short ADOT, which is actually interesting. Like maybe, he gets fed a lot for them. And I do like Miles Sanders at 5,600. He's just invisible because everyone's going down to Mostert, Brian Robinson, Jamal, or up. So I think 5,600 for Miles Sanders. He's kind of invisible, and he's a very classic, 2 touchdown guy. But guy you need, probably not. Guy who helps you more often than 6%. I think so.
Next time, could you give me a little warning so I can wash all the dirt off my hands before we get all analytical like that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. All right. So just a evergreen warning. So Houston at Baltimore, 43.5 total. Baltimore at like 9.5, 10 point favorites. Baltimore second highest total on the slate. With Mark Andrews out, Isaiah Likely is going to be prohibitively chalky. People somehow my one thing, people are playing Lamar Jackson more with Mark Andrews out than they were with Mark Andrews in, and that's just a product of now with Andrews out, you feel really good about clicking the pass catchers because it might concentrate and now you can click them cheap. But Lamar Jackson went from 6 to 8%, and now he's probably going to be 10%, possibly even more, just because he's like, oh, I can lock up Lamar, Zay Flowers, and Likely. So, um, word of caution there, I do probably still like Flowers and Likely, but it's going to be like very much more owned than it was yesterday.
Yeah. I don't want to spend any of my talking time on this game. I hate this game. I'm fading the game entirely
Yeah,
outside of likely in cash. We kind of argued a little bit last night. I think Flowers is a much better play now with Mandrews out, but that
sure.
also means his ownership is going to triple or
Yeah,
quadruple from where it would have been
yeah,
yesterday.
exactly.
And that's all I have to say.
Or if I were to use optimizers, Lamar Jackson stacks are not ones that I think you need to include a bring back. However, they're so low owned, it can't hurt.
Yeah.
I don't think that the Ravens need to be forced, like because they're so cheap. I know Lamar's expensive himself, but because the pass catchers are so cheap, like I think that stack gets there with like Ravens can win this game 28-3, and you can get there with your Lamar doubles just fine.
Yeah.
Um,
If
because
I was
Nico and
bringing it
Kittle
back, I
are both
think
really
you have
expensive.
2 options, period. I think you can make a case for Dame if he's gonna catch passes and play 90% of the
Yeah,
snaps like people suspect, or
yeah,
Nico, but the other clicks are not even possible.
yeah. Yep. Cleveland at home against Cincinnati, 47.5 total is, tied for second on the slate. It's a pretty high total and not like ownership really only going to Chase at earlier in the week. Mixon was like flirting around the optimals and he's, still grading out well. I've not seen anyone touting Mixon. So he's one of those, like, if you're purely playing the math, and you trust the math, which I don't know how much either of us do, like, Mixon is an on paper good play. I just don't really see it. Anything you like here outside of Chase one offs?
No, I really don't like this game. I hate, divisional week 1 games. I just don't like it. I think that's probably a boomerish take. I don't know if data supports it, but I think these teams are just ugly. This is gonna be a slogfest. I don't like it. I'm rolling out a tiny bit of Chubb with Cleveland's defense, but, yeah, I hate this game. Joe Burrow hasn't practiced a whole lot. The Cleveland's defense is, they were number 1 against pass last year. They're maybe better this year. I don't know what's going on here. If I didn't have a personal/moral stance, I might be interested in the Cleveland passing side.
Yep. Yep.
But I don't want to talk about that, but I'm not doing that.
Yeah. So I don't want to bury the lead, but the first stack that I built was Baker Mayfield, and the second quarterback that I clicked on was Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
I don't like anything about him as a person,
Yeah.
and I'm not really super intrigued about Cleveland relative to the hype around them. But Anthony Richardson at 5,600, and you could pay 400 more for Deshaun Watson in a 47.5 total at home. Um, my only like, I don't love Amari Cooper at that price. I do like Njoku, just because he's at that invisible tight end price. So I'm still deciding how I want to play it. If I'm like Deshaun and Njoku skinny feels kind of weird, so it's like you might as well throw in Amari and then Chase. So my second team that I've been building is a Deshaun double with Chase bring back. So just like
Yeah.
the ownership and price are just too low for where they're projected and where this game might go.
Yeah.
So,
Once Deshaun doesn't stink again is when I'll have to put my personal stance to the test, but for now, I'm
yeah.
comfy.
Yep. Jacksonville, Indianapolis, 46 total in the dome. Jim Irsay tweeted out how they close the windows, close the doors. Jacksonville is favored by almost 5 points. Anthony Richardson, relatively chalky. Calvin Ridley, chalky. You can get away with playing pretty much anyone else here. I know you're talking about you like ETN mixed in with Jack's defense. Anything besides that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, just looking at this on the screen, I can see a world where, Michael Pittman at 6,200, that's just too much for like the I'm in trouble check down stuff. But if Kylan Granson is that guy at 2,900, that could be a problem. And in a Omega large field GPP, I could see you rolling that out as a cheap, as a cheap guy that's not owned. I'm not going to do it. I'm
Or you
just
don't have
mentioning
any
it.
interest?
No,
All right.
nah.
We can workshop that. Yeah, 6,900 is an uncomfortable price for ETN, but I think definitely mix that in. Christian Kirk. So I saw people saying like Calvin Ridley grades out well. It's a good spot. You know Indianapolis defense is pretty bad. Their secondary is banged up and not good. And the dome, like, might as well throw in Trevor Lawrence. And I would just challenge you to say, like, if Calvin Ridley is relatively chalky and you're just adding his quarterback, like, what leverage are you gaining? Like, why wouldn't you just, take Calvin Ridley naked? If you're going to play Lawrence, I think you have to mix in Kirk and or Ingram, with Ridley or even without Ridley. So I think like Kirk is saying that he's 10%. I haven't seen much buzz there at all. So I would say he's going to come in not like he's hard capped at 10%, and it's very likely you get him in the single digits, especially in like a higher stake or small field single entry. So Christian Kirk is a guy that I think, is criminally undervalued as a good source of, slot receiver points. So if you are playing Trevor Lawrence, I actually do like the Christian Kirk route. I wouldn't play like Lawrence Kirk skinny. I'll do Lawrence Kirk Ridley, Lawrence Kirk, even Ingram. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Lawrence Ridley skinny. I'd rather just play Ridley and a different quarterback.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Now one of my favorite games, Tampa Bay at Minnesota. 46 total, tied for third on the slate. Minnesota 5-point favorites. Obviously, Justin Jefferson is going to be very, very high owned. Madison is sort of middling in ownership. Not a whole lot else here. Kyden's going to make me really sad if he's right about Trey Palmer's season, because I'm playing everyone else besides him in this game. Maybe I should mix him in the big Millie, but I think you like this game too.
I do.
Tell me how you're attacking it.
I don't know where Kaiden got my show notes from, but it might have been from Dink. Yeah, shout out Dink. Yeah, I'm going to use a little Trey Palmer purely in lineups where, I'm looking for that 3K guy and I just can't use Mims Reed because, the thing that you can do here with Baker plus Godwin plus Palmer or Baker Evans Palmer,
Yeah.
the really cute things you can do with that is you can get Eckler and Tyreek. You
Yeah.
can get these other big stuff, and I don't want to put Reed Mims in those types of lineups. So if I love a 3K receiver that you compare with his quarterback, because
Sure.
if your quarterback goes bonkers, it's increasing the chances that your 3K flyer guy actually gets there or gets something. And
Yeah.
it opens up some builds. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a guy who lives with my hand in the dirt, and I don't know who the fuck Trey Palmer is, and I don't know that I will after this week. But based on the things that I'm seeing and the way the slate is shaping up, I will have some. On the other side, Madison is excellent leverage off of Justin Jefferson. It's a good spot for him. I'm definitely rolling out some Madison. And I'll have some cousin stacks too.
Yeah, I was gonna say I do like my Cousins. Looks like he's going to be under owned. You can play it with Jefferson, but I would again same thing with the Lawrence. Like adding Cousins to Jefferson, like you might as well add while you're at it. You might as well add a low owned Hawkinson or even Addison to that. I'm not, and my primary GPP build right now is a Baker, Godwin, Evans with both Madison and Jefferson. In the past, we saw Minnesota with mostly the same coaching staff. Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson actually pretty highly positively correlated. That offense has been very concentrated in the past. And if you're just betting on, this game, the 46 total, if that goes over into the 50s, Madison in 6,500 is very cheap relative to the ceiling that he might get. I'm not saying he's equivalent to Dalvin Cook from 2 years ago, but like in the past, Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson were both in the 8Ks. And guys like JM playing them together. So I do like Madison
Yeah.
alone and even with Justin Jefferson, you might be capping your upside. But again, in like a 1,000 entry contest, I think that's pretty fine. And
Yeah.
Cousins, again, because the Vikings offense is so concentrated and it's a good game environment in the dome, and the Tampa Bay defense is likely not going to be very good. And, I've seen talk about how, Todd Bowles is going to have to, send some, blitzes. And the only way that like their secondary is pretty bad. Minnesota, by the way, the reason why I'm very high on Tampa Bay, Minnesota secondary is really,
Yeah.
really bad.
Their whole
Um,
defense.
and I think that if I'm not mistaken, they might already be banged up too. So they played in a whole bunch of shootouts last year,
Yep.
which provided a lot of fantasy goodness for Justin Jefferson, but also a hell of a lot for all of their opponents. So I really like playing, 3, 4, even 5 guys from this game.
Yeah, I totally agree. If Minnesota's defense is as bad as we think it is, and if Baker Mayfield is able to, play quarterback adequately the way we think he could, then this game
Yeah,
easily has the best chance to exceed its total, and there could be
yeah,
some fantasy goodness there.
yeah. And if you and like again, you don't Baker Mayfield is low owned and high upside, and if you want, you can game stack this with a different quarterback. Like you can get
Yep.
Godwin, Madison, Jefferson, and just play a different quarterback from a different game. If you don't want to take on the Baker Mayfield risk, I wouldn't blame you for that. Tennessee at New Orleans, in the dome, 41.5 total. Pretty middling on this slate. It's not very exciting. Joel Williams, obviously, chalk. We talked about Olave. In that second tier of chalk, everyone else here is going to be pretty low owned. I think we're both on the Olave is a pretty good play. Jamal Williams not too exciting.
Yeah. I actually like stacking this game up. I think this is another one of the games that I think I can personally tell a story where this game exceeds its total. I mean, Ryan Tannehill being back is a big deal. He has this DeAndre Hopkins weapon. Like, what if, the Saints defense is not that great? I mean, they're not bad,
No,
but
they're fine.
I can see a world where Tennessee can keep up and New Orleans without too much of a rushing attack, considering Jamal's just kind of a plotter. I can just see a world where these teams trade for a quarter or something like that. And I do not like the Ryan Tannehill side, to be clear. I'm
Yeah,
not going to play him in DFS, but I do think you can roll out, Hopkins and or Burks and or Chig. I do think Henry makes these are all as a bring back, one guy
yep,
max.
yep,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
not stacking them up,
No,
but
no, for sure not.
and then I think that Juwan Johnson and Taysom are in play. And I love Derek Carr Olave stacks.
Well, so the good news is this whole show is basically story time.
Come on now. Come on now. I'm
Yeah,
behaving.
I think Carr. No, you're doing great. I think Carr at that ownership and at that price is actually pretty fine. And the doubles are clean. I would definitely just go Olave and Jawan Johnson there. But if you want to sell yourself a story on, Michael Thomas is the healthiest that he'll be. I don't know how healthy that is, but this is the healthiest he'll be all season. Um, yeah, I think you can definitely do that. Taysom Hill also 3,700. I will play him in exactly one lineup. I do think that is one my bear case on Jamal Williams, and I'll probably show up in cash with him, and I'm not eager to play him in GPP. I just think there's no second running back listed here because their projections are like all but zero. They do have one or two other guys that are going to be active, Tony Jones and what's his name, Kirk Merritt or whatever it is, but Taysom Hill is their running back too this week. Is that going to lead to enough points at 3,700 at tight end? Probably not, but what if it does? So one lineup with Taysom Hill for me, and Chris Olave and Derek Carr will not be in that lineup for me, but I do have to give Taysom Hill a shout out.
Oh, I'm gonna give him a shout out.
Okay. San Francisco at Pittsburgh, actually same total as the last game, 41.5. San Francisco, very small road favorites. I believe this game is in the 1 o'clock window. So, buyer beware. This classic trap line here, only 2.5 points, or actually it's only even 2 now, but yeah, nobody really getting much ownership. I did see a little bit. Debo's team, he's just at that, mid-range wide receiver price, which is like somewhere between invisible and like depending like how you build, you know, could be last guy into your lineups. Anything you like here from this game?
I liked it more before I saw the rain and thunderstorms, and then I saw the no chance of rain and thunderstorms.
Okay, let
You
me
know,
to it.
I'll just tell you a little story about this game. You
Take
already
your shower.
mentioned 2 games that I think can exceed their total. This is the third one. San Francisco is going across country, right? That historically has led to them maybe being a little slower out of the gate. Pittsburgh has all kinds of offseason hype about their offense looking better and Kenny looking better, and what if Pittsburgh comes out and goes up 10 points and whatever and pushes San Francisco into more of a tempo catch up kind of mode? Debo at 5,500 in that type of a game script is
Oh yeah,
ridiculous to me, considering
yeah.
Drake London is 5,400 and stuff. So I definitely am interested in Debo and large field stuff. I'm stacking both sides of this just a little bit. I really like Deontay. You remember we talked last year, game 1, about Miles Sanders, 0 touchdowns in 2021. That
Mm-hmm.
guy this season is Deontay Johnson for me. Pickens is getting all the hype. Fryermuth is getting a lot of hype. But what about Deontay with 0 touchdowns last year? I love the CMC Deontay mini. I love the Debo and Fryermuth mini. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
have some of this game. And I think there's a world where this game exceeds its total if the weather behaves.
Yeah, it seems like it will. If any of the Badge Bro contingent are around, this is a game that I've been attacking the minis and like battle royale stuff. And if you're
Yeah.
playing things like that, like I think both Freiermuth and even Kittle are very undervalued and easy to pair with CMC. Not a huge fan of Deontay, but maybe Pickens in that kind of format. But yeah, CMC's ownership is going to be low just because if you're spending 8,700 for anyone on this slate, it's going to be Justin Jefferson at 88, or it's going to be one of those receivers, or it's going to be Eckler. So CMC's ownership is not going to be any higher than 12%. Debo, I think Debo's upside is just so explosive, man. And the way that he hits, like he's going to give you 3 weeks a year that you just had to have him to get to the very top. One thing to keep in mind, or keep an eye out for, is if Kittle ends up being inactive. It does seem like he's trending towards playing. If he is inactive, like Debo becomes a super priority for me. And I don't know how much he's going to get steamed. Like people have already made a couple of pivots and now super into likely and all that. I feel it would be hard for me to see anyone getting super steamed. That I really like Debo, and even Ayuk at 4,900 is very cheap too.
Yeah. Agreed.
If you think Kittle plays banged up, Ayuk is a smash. I mean, yeah, that's one of those things where the splits for when these three and even McCaffrey, those four are active, it's hard for the offense to concentrate around just one. Um, I don't know that I would play Ayuk unless Kittle is out. If Kittle is out, then I think Ayuk goes. Like, if I don't think it's week 1, I don't think Kittle is going to play bang. I mean, everyone's banged up, but I don't think it's going to be like Kittle is there and not contributing. Um, so I'm
Yeah.
not eager to play Ayuk unless Kittle's out officially.
Let's go. Let's go. We're getting to the
Yeah,
good games.
yeah. We're getting to the good games. Arizona, Washington, 38 total. Brian Robinson, you good to move on?
Yeah. When DK pricing came out, I was excited and I wanted to play Dotson so bad. And
Yeah,
now I'm looking at the slate. You cannot play Dotson. I mean, you could,
yeah.
but
I mean,
don't
three
play
now he's
Dotson.
like at 3%, but yeah,
Yeah.
you can't do that. Is Zach Ertz? Can you tell me if Zach Ertz actually playing? But in the
He's
meantime, we're moving.
probably going to play,
Okay,
and
whatever.
no
All right, that's
one
enough.
cares.
That's enough. Catch me up. Green Bay at Chicago, 41.5 total. Very popular total here. Jaden Reed is going to be chalky-ish. Luke Musgrave, chalky-ish. Aaron Jones is one of those guys that grades out well, but I don't think anybody really wants to click, similar to Joe Mixon.
Cram shows up to our stream
Wow.
finally.
What about
He
Washington
shows up
defense?
finally and then has
You can
that
play.
question.
You have permission to play Washington defense if you don't play any of the top other 5 or 10 owned, but otherwise, I think you can't play them outside of cash. Anyway, Green Bay, Chicago. Anything you like here? Outside of that Jaden Reed thing that we were talking about
So
earlier.
I'm going to do a tiny, tiny, tiny spiel here because you asked this question in chat earlier. But you just said a moment ago, it's week 1. And you hear throughout the industry, it's week 1. One of the main things you need to remember about week 1 is that we think we know a heck of a lot more than we actually do know. And you should you should stick on course with what you think, but there's some clear spots where things could be a little bit different. Now, people are saying the Bears don't project that well, right? And the slappies are going to tell you the reason for that is the Bears stink, and they may very well be right. But the actual reason mathematically why they don't project very well is every projection place has this game as the slowest game ever, and
Yeah.
that makes sense based on 2022. But this is a clear situation where I can say to you, what if both of these teams don't want to play as slow as they did in 2022? A-Rod takes every second of the play clock
He does. Yeah.
to
He
analyze
plays slow.
defenses. What if Jordan Love doesn't do that? The Bears have been telling you all offseason, both verbally and with what they've done, that they want to play in the passing game. Why did they get Claypool? Why did they get DJ Moore? Why did they draft a right tackle? Why did they sign Tanyan? What if these teams play at a higher pace? That's all I'm saying about it. So I'm going to roll out some JF1 with DJ Moore. I think they want to show their new weapon. I think that's a common thing when you make a big splash deal.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have things drawn up. He's a yak guy. Green Bay's defense stinks, and I'm going to roll some of that out. That's more fun stuff as a Bear fan. As a DFS player who wants to try to not lose his money, I do think Khalil Herbert and the Bears defense is an excellent correlation. And you can talk about the Packers stuff. I'm fine with the Packers stuff. I'm just, I'm a Bear fan, so I'm not playing too much of it outside of bring back stuff.
Yeah. So Khalil Herbert, and let me share the link to this in chat in case anyone doesn't have it. No, I think it might be in the show notes, or if not, I'll add it after. But yeah, Khalil Herbert at 4%, I have him as, 10% optimal. One micro thing with Khalil Herbert, he's in that Brian Robinson, Raheem Mostert, Jamal Williams range, and he's not going to get clicked anywhere near as much as those guys. So like you're getting, 5-1 odds on Khalil Herbert versus Jamal Williams. Like that's a theoretical smash. It may not pay out this week, but that's definitely, if you're playing by the book, that's definitely a good place to click. And I do actually like Aaron Jones. And anything you can tell me about, real quick about Bears, run defense, how do you feel?
Yeah, so I'm a homer, but I also like to look at things a little bit objectively. So as far as the run defense is concerned, most people don't like the fact that the Bears did this, but I do think it's relevant to the run game and to the tight end of Green Bay, which is the Bears spent all their money on linebackers.
They replaced them with Edwards and whatever his name is, Edmonds.
I mean, they spent all their money on linebackers on defense. And what do linebackers do? They try to stop the run and they cover up tight ends. And Edmonds is maybe the best pass defending linebacker there is. So that's why I'm out on Musgrave in tourneys. That's a bit hand in the dirty, but
there's only so many
answer.
There's only so many guys like Jaden. You look at this list: Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, Samori Toure, Luke Musgrave.
Opportunity can overcome that. Even if the Bears play well, opportunity can overcome that for Musgrave. So
I think Aaron Jones is invisible. Nobody's talked about him. It's way too late for him to get steam. It's just the price range no one's looking at. So I do like Aaron Jones. I like both running backs in this game, and I do actually like Jaden Reed. I think the most of the 3K receivers. Speaking of 3K receivers, another one to talk about here: Las Vegas at Denver, 43 total. Fairly high for this slate. Denver only a 3-point favorite. I actually kind of like Vegas to go into Denver and give them a good fight. Wouldn't surprise me to see Vegas pull off the upset and for this game to go over. I do like a lot of different spots in this game. Anything jump out to you, Ori?
I don't know about jump out to it, but I will say this: the projections across the board from all the sites are showing basically a 50-50 split-ish from P. Ryan Javante, and that is at odds with what Sean Payton is claiming himself, which could be bullshit because A, he's Sean Payton, and B, he's an NFL coach. But basically what I'm saying is if Javante is the guy who Payton says he is, then I like Javante a lot on this slate. And Devontae Adams, everybody's looking at Surtain, Broncos defense is good, blah, blah, blah. Well, Devontae's better, and he has torched them. 100%. And Jacoby is the other guy. I'm running out some stuff here.
Yeah, I I mean, on the Vegas side for me, like I might start. I'm starting some lineups with Devonte Adams just as like a price pivot, and I think the upside and even the median projection for him versus Tyreek Hill is is very comparable at 1/3 the ownership. To give up half a point of projection
Yeah.
feels pretty good there. Marvin Mims is like, if 19% is right, I don't know that it is. I'll refresh that as it changes. Like 19% is way too high for like a high A dot like guy who's just being thrust up as a wide receiver too. Granted, it's probably a pretty good matchup. Cortland Sutton is a guy that was flashing in optimals early in the week. I don't know that you need to go there. I'd rather find 300 bucks if I can to go up to Debo Samuel over Sutton for less ownership. And then it's an interesting point about Javonte and even P Ryan too. They're both going to be pretty low owned. If you start, with Raheem Mostert in your GPP lineup, which I will be doing in many lineups, and you're off to a bad start, like Baker Mayfield doesn't work out, finding a way to go from Mostert either to P Ryan at 5,100 or even finding a way to get up to Javante at 5,700, like it's like one of those price pivot things again. Like
Yeah.
he's right here, so 15.4 points versus 13 points. They give up 2 points on a lineup that's dead. Is really not that bad. So a lot of
Yeah,
things
it's
I like
important to try and
here.
cash when you're dead, and that's a way
Yeah,
that you can do it.
yeah. So a lot of things that I do like here. The thing I like most, obviously, is Devonte Adams, and then I do like a little bit of Raiders defense at 2,300. Marvin Mims, I'm okay with that. I'm more into Jaden Reed, ownership adjusted.
Yeah.
All right, Miami at the Chargers, number one total on the slate, 51. Miami on the road, one of the higher scoring offenses projected on the slate. Tyreek Hill is going to be chalk. Raheem Mostert, Eckler. I don't know. Like, I think Eckler is going to be less owned than all the three wide receivers, so I wouldn't call him like prohibitively high chalk. But yeah, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like stacking this game up, but I love using minis from this game
Yeah,
in my other stuff. I'm
yeah, I'm
not on
with you.
either side in terms of stacking this game. I think Raheem Mostert is bad chunk. I don't like Raheem Mostert. Um, my minis are mostly around Eckler with Waddle or Eckler with Hill. But I am playing a little bit of Keenan, a tiny bit of Mike Williams, tiny bit of Durham Smythe, whatever the hell his name is. And yeah, love minis from the game for obvious reasons, but I'm not interested in stacking this game up unless, it's a pivot later, which we'll have to see.
Yep. No, I agree. I'm not like super into the Mike Williams or Keenan Allen like at their prices and like getting a little bit of ownership. Like I'm not super into the Chargers side of this. And Jalen Waddle is one of my favorite pivot plays. I might start a lineup with Tyreek and then you go down to Waddle and figure out what you do with your salary savings for the rest of your lineup swap. So it might not be that I start with a bunch of Waddle, but you bet when things inevitably go wrong at 1 p.m., my Tyreeks are going to become Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
Two's, yeah, probably shouldn't laugh at that one, but yeah, two a double. I don't know. Like it depends on your contest. I think it's going to be really hard. Like they're just so expensive. I think it's going to be really hard for both Tyreek and Waddle to get there. I'd rather just I'd rather just play Waddle and Jamar Chase than Waddle and Tyreek Hill. But I understand, and it's not going to be very high owned.
Yeah.
Philly and New England, sneaky 44.5 total. Jalen Hurts going to be owned. Literally nobody else. Kendrick Bourne is like popping. If his projection stays this high, and that's a result of like Devontae Parker stuff, I'll try and keep this updated. But if his projection stays this high, he won't be 3%. He'll be at 10%. I would hate to flip over the cards and accidentally play a chalky Kendrick Bourne. But anything do you like in this game outside of Jalen Hurts?
Nah, I think you're fine to run out of Hurts skinny and bring it back with either Bourne or Henry.
Yep.
But I don't like this game. The main reason I don't like this game is like, I don't know. Belichick is getting beat up about not being able to guard running quarterbacks, and they've had the whole
Yeah, I've
season
seen
to
that.
dissect Hurts and JF1.
I've
And
seen that.
he's just not a guy I trust to just go get pants like people think he's going to do. And this is the
It's
game
small thread.
where I am the least afraid of like a Hurts explosion kind of game or a big game blowout. And the running back situation makes it so that it's not that I mean, I like Swift, I like Penny, I don't know, but who the hell knows what they're going to do?
Yeah.
I'm comfortable watching this game, and just now in week 2, now I kind of see what's going on. So then I'll have an opinion. But for now, I'm just in watch mode.
Yeah, I do like Hurts and Devontae. Devontae at 3% is very low. And again, like I've seen some noise about how the Eagles have not covered tight end particularly well, and there's a lot of training camp and preseason steam around Hunter Henry. And again, 3,500, 2% is way too low.
Yeah.
I'd feel very comfortable. Like if you flip over the cards and Hunter Henry's 10%, like I would not even be upset about that. And I think he's going to definitely be under that. So I really like Hunter Henry. If you're just playing like price pivot games, like again against that um, against Musgrave, I think is a good good price pivot if you're playing this game. And again, like it's only 3.5 spread, so Eagles on the brink of a Super Bowl and they're only favored by a field goal against the Patriots is definitely not how people are viewing this team in this game in all likelihood. So Patriots are
Yeah.
probably a better play than I want to admit.
Yeah, that's true.
Last but not least, 46 total is shockingly high for me. Rams at Seattle, 25.5 for Seattle. Not a whole lot of ownership here. I think if anything, all these guys are going to come in lighter than it shows. I was excited about Puka Nacua for a second there, but I don't think you can really feel good clicking Puka as the wide receiver 2 or 3 on a bad offense versus Marvin Mims wide receiver 2 or Jaden Reed wide receiver 1.5 on probably better offenses. So yeah, anything you like here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm clicking some Cam Akers. I like where he is. 6,200 is a little bit high, but it's a similar range of like
Oh,
Alexander
sure.
Madison, where if the
It's the
game does
invisible
get
range.
weird, his usage also spikes with Higbee's
It
when
did.
Cooper Kupp is out. And
Yeah.
so Cam Akers fine for me. I'm running some out. I'm playing Higbee, no other Rams. And I do like some Geno singles and doubles with Metcalf Lockett or either and Kenny Walker. But this is all just like, not love,
Yeah.
I'm playing some.
Yeah. I don't know if Anto's still awake, but his highest owned Noah Fant is a desperation. Like I have Luke Musgrave and like Justin Herbert lineup left, and I gotta flip it to Geno Smith with DK and Noah Fant. I actually kind of like something like that. Like 25.5 points is a lot. It's the third highest on the
Yeah.
slate, and nobody is playing it.
And why
So I
wouldn't
think
the
Ken
first
Walker.
Sunday of the year end with us tilting a Colby Parkinson Will Disley
Oh
game
yeah, don't even.
when you own fans?
Ugh, ugh, ugh. All right.
Easy. Tell me
Yeah,
something.
thanks to everyone for being here. Don't leave just yet, or he's gonna give you just fuck around and find out. Please, who
All right.
is your number one?
My number one, fuck around and find out. I kind of alluded to it earlier, but it is ETN with the Jags defense. Fuck around and find out. Like, this is going to be a big game. Tank Shitsby's not going to play. ETN all day long. And then a bonus, fuck around and find out, is Khalil Herbert with the Bears defense. You guys are going to learn about the Bears defense today.
Ooh,
That's all I got.
ETN, yeah, Herbie, those Bears. Yeah. I like both those calls. I actually do like both of those calls. I've my first lineup, probably my last lineup. I just can't get enough combinations of. If I had to just like narrow it, I do think like I love Chris Godwin, Penn Stater, Mike Evans at 3% ownership. All the talk about his contract. Is he going to get traded? No, Mike Evans is going to show up and he's going to play football because it's Sunday afternoon. And at 6,300 and at 4% ownership, Mike Evans, when he gets there, is really going to get there. So I really love Mike Evans. And I do like it both with Madison and Jefferson. I like Hawkinson too. Um, and if I had to throw out a second, I would just say Tyler Higbee with a Ken Walker little mini stack there as the late hammer, smashing that. Isaiah likely comes out at 1 p.m. and scores like goes 3 for 30. You're feeling really good about Tyler Higbee waiting for you at 4 p.m.
I love the Evans call. And let me just say, after hearing Dak go to sleep for 12 hours getting his tattoos, you know Mike Evans is awake for that damn ink. That's a gam.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a gam.
Yep. All right. Thanks everyone for sticking around with us. I'm sure there's a lot of sharper, better content that you could be watching. Thanks for hanging out with us. Like, subscribe, do whatever else people tell you to do. But if nothing else, don't show up and play as a likely in the Commanders defense in your GPPs together. So that's all I've got.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Good luck in week 1. See you next week.
Bye.